I have a rule that served me pretty well in my life, and that is don't be the bad guy unless you need to be. And unfortunately, in today's video, I'm going to play the role of a bad guy, at least for a little bit. You know, as a financial advisor for over 20 years, sometimes you have to give people a direct message and share with them some news that they don't want to hear. So in today's video, I'm going to play that role, and I'm going to talk about 5 uncomfortable retirement truths that you probably don't want to hear, but I think you're going to be better for having heard it. So let's go for a walk and talk about it. Okay, the first one is that transitions are difficult. The transition into retirement is one of the most difficult transitions that people make, right? So much of your identity is tied up with work and the activities around work. Your friends are at work. A lot of your friends are at work. And that transition away from work is hard. It's really hard for a lot of people. But you know what? It doesn't get easier. It's not going to be easier 5 years from now, and it's not going to be easier 10 years from now. But you know what will be different 5 years or 10 years from now is you will have used up some of your healthiest and most active time that you have remaining. The startling truth is if you're 60 years old, you likely have less than 1,000 weeks of healthy, active time remaining in front of you. And that's not a lot of time. And you don't want to avoid retiring because this transition, this fear of the unknown, right? Because the reality is at some point you're likely going to retire and you're going to have to go through that transition anyways. So why not do it sooner rather than later when you have your healthiest and most active years in front of you? Excuse me, I got a mosquito on my nose. Okay, number 2. The harsh truth is the biggest risk that you face as a retiree, you can't control. I wish you could control. There's some things you can do to put the odds in your favor, but you still can't control it, right? One of those risks is your health, right? That's probably the most important risk for any of us. And we can all do the right things. We can eat right. We can take care of ourselves. We can work out. But none of us knows, you know, we might get cancer, we might get a heart attack, something like that. So on the health side, those are risks we can't control. And in a similar way, there are risks we cannot, the biggest, the most important risk we can't control in our retirement accounts or savings account. And that is what's going to happen with the stock market. But just like you can make good decisions with your health, you can also make good decisions with your investments. And you can take no more risk than what you need to take to achieve your goals. And you can have an asset allocation, the right mix of stocks and bonds in your portfolio so that you can weather bumpy and scary times. You know, if you're 100% in the stock market, that's going to be a really scary ride if the market goes through a 30, a 40, or a 50% correction. And if you have 30 or 40 years in front of you, you know, the harsh truth is you're going to have some very scary times. None of us have a crystal ball, I can't tell you, but I would not be surprised if the market went through a 30, a 40%, or even a 50% correction over the next 40 years. So the time to get that asset allocation in your stock and bond mix right is now, when you're thinking with a clear mind, when you're making good decisions. It's not at the time when you're scared. Okay, so that's harsh truth number 2. Ready for number 3? Number 3 is 95% ain't 100%. And that is, you know, people go to folks like me, a financial advisor, to come up with a plan, to have a game plan for how are they going to reach their retirement goals. And we have tools that can help us evaluate that. And, you know, one of those tools is something called Monte Carlo simulation. There's a lot of different tools, but ultimately what we're trying to do is plug in to these plans, you know, what type of cash flows you're looking for, what type of retirement you want, what kind of assets you have, what historical returns have been, and to give you a likelihood that you'll be able to do all that and never run out of money during your lifetime. And so kind of the gold standard for that is 95%. If you have a 95% likelihood of success, That's a really, really high likelihood. But again, it's not a guarantee, you know. 95% ain't 100%. So there are some risks that even with a well thought out plan that you're probably going to be taking. Okay, let's keep going. The next one is, you know, life's uncertain. We talked about this earlier, where there's risk, right? There's risk with your health. There's risk with your life. None of us know how long that we're going to live. There's risk with relationships. You know, you can only do what you can do to foster relationships. And just like with your health, you invest in those relationships. You do the best that you can. But probably the biggest and the most important one on that list is your health, right? Once your health is gone, it's really hard to regain it. Once you're at, you know, getting close to retirement age, like most of my audience is. But still, those are risks that are out of your control. Okay, on the subject of risk, there are some risk that are worth taking. And a great example of that is what I was talking about earlier, the likelihood of your financial plan succeeding, right? I said 95% plus is kind of the gold standard. It's where we all want to be. But you know, if you're at 80%, if you have an 80% likelihood of being able to achieve your goals, you need to understand what it's going to take to go from 80% to 95%. And for most people, I don't know your situation, this isn't financial advice for you, but for most people to go from 80% likelihood of success to 95%, that's at least several years of your life. It's at least several years of continuing to work and continue to save. And there are some risks worth taking. And only you can make the decision that's right for you. But you know, for me, is it worth working an extra 5 years to go from 80% to 95% likelihood? For me, this is my own personal decision, but no, it's not. And the reason is because as human beings, we are adaptable. When things change, and I just went through all these factors that are out of our control, when things change, we adapt. And it may not be what you were planning on, but it's likely going to be really, really good. Like if I went through a really tough time in the stock markets and I had to cut down on my spending, for me, one of the things that would be on my plate is maybe I live in a lower cost country for a couple years. South America I visited, Southeast Asia. That's not my initial plan now, but you know what? That plan would be great too. So since we can't control it anyways, why not take a few risks out of there? You know, and so we need to balance out, and that's really what this video has been about, is balancing, right? These are some of the uncomfortable truths, but then there's also some uncomfortable benefits and some things to look forward to. And for that, I encourage you to watch this video here, which talks about 5 reasons to retire as soon as you can. It's kind of part 2, and it's the other side of today's coin. So 5 reasons to retire as soon as you can. I hope you enjoy the video, and thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.